Welcome to a Thursday edition of the Baseball Insiders. Happy 420. Kind of funny that Madison Bumgarner got DFA'd today after 69 starts. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Fansided's MLB insider Robert Murray. We're here to break down the latest in Bumgarner news, plus a couple injuries rocking the AL East, and one more extension. Who knew there'd be another pitching extension between Monday's and Thursday's show? And one of baseball's brightest stars also returns tonight. And if you want to hear us talk about that and more, there's no place like the Baseball Insiders feed. If you're here on YouTube, we thank you. Come join us every Monday and Thursday at 3:30 Eastern. If you prefer the audio feed, we got that too. You'll find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Truly, wherever you get your podcasts. Anywhere you want to leave a 5-star review for us, we'd welcome that. And I'm joined, as always, by Robert Murray himself. Robert, how are you processing the Bumgarner news? Are you holding up all right?
Yeah, I was in tears earlier. No, it was a tough day, but no, in all seriousness, like that was one that I thought may be happening. I actually found out through my dad. I was I was getting a good workout in this morning, and then all of a sudden, my AirPods went off, and it's a new text from Dad, Madison Bumgarner, with the crying emoji, and I'm like, what that's about? And lo and behold, he was DFA'd. That was a disaster of a signing for the Diamondbacks. That never really worked out, but we'll get into that later. But other than that, Adam, I am wonderful. Wonderful day, and happy 420 to you, by the way.
Hey, happy 420 to everybody. The comments, I hope y'all are enjoying. We might as well talk about Mad Bum first, I think, because this is sort of the late breaking addition to the docket. He was terrible yesterday. His ERA is now over 10. A couple of people lightheartedly speculating about a DFA after that bad start in St. Louis. He decided to pick one more fight with Wilson Contreras before he left. Unsurprising if you know how he acts. It now goes into history as $34+ million eaten by the Diamondbacks to get him off the roster, according to Jeff Passan. Just under 2 years left of contract, 5.23 ERA in his Diamondbacks career in 3+ years. Quite bad. The under the hood stuff and the StatCast numbers, just as bad. The only surprising thing about Madison Bumgarner is that he is under 34 years old. He is still 33. That is downright shocking. But you admitted as much that you were not completely surprised by this DFA. I don't think anybody who's watched him is stunned by it. But are there any destinations where he could theoretically wind up where he'd help somebody? He's now available for the league minimum.
Yeah, and he was designated for assignment. Nobody's going to claim him at that price. Then he'll be released and be free to go. And obviously, Burner, you did not miss any Rays talk. We just started, so you're good there. But it wasn't surprising that he was designated for assignment, but it was a surprise. I guess it was this early, but I guess the start against the Cardinals was the last straw and all they needed to see. That signing has basically been a disaster since it happened. He's had a pretty high ERA in each year in Arizona when he was signed to be a frontline starter. So he never lived up to that contract. But as far as a free agent, I wondered if Hunter Armour, who's also works with us at Fanside, asked me earlier today if the Giants could be a potential destination. And I'm going to guess probably not. Just because ownership there, they are pretty attached to their homegrown stars, and obviously Bumgarner had a very storied tenure with the Giants, but they let Farhan Zaidi make the decisions there, and I can't see Farhan Zaidi being eager to add Bumgarner, who's clearly past his prime, maybe as a left-handed reliever out of the bullpen, other teams that maybe make sense, the Rangers, who obviously have Bruce Bochy that managed Bumgarner with San Francisco, that could be a potential one. There's not many teams that make sense for Bumgarner, but he'll get a job somewhere. But just the destinations as of right now, not exactly standing out.
The Rangers, I thought about because of Bochy, obviously, because of the fact that they lost Jake Odorizzi, but that team is clicking on all cylinders. You're introducing a pretty big variable if all of a sudden you add Madison Bumgarner. You mentioned that he could maybe be a candidate to me to pitch out of the bullpen for somebody as he's trying to rehab his value. Do you think the next step is somebody grabs him for the league minimum, they throw him in low leverage for a little bit, try to find something, and then maybe he's a swing man? I mean, that's crazy to think he's just 33, but that probably is the best hope at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well, is that that's his best hope. And Bumgarner being only 33, when I read that earlier today, I was shocked, but you also got to remember he debuted when he was like 20 or 21 when the Giants were going through those postseason runs. So he's basically been pitching almost half of my lifetime, which is kind of crazy to think about. And he's had one hell of a career, and he's going to be one. I'm sure it's probably already started, the Hall of Fame debate with him. I'm going to guess probably not, but like his Giants tenure, what he accomplished there is certainly worth it. But as far as what he can provide a major league team now, it's pretty limited. I think his days as a starter, unless there's like a spot injury or a spot start because of an injury, I think his starting days are over.
The Hall of Fame debate is crazy because nobody was like him in the postseason. He is the best postseason pitcher, and since he hasn't gotten back for so long, might retire as the best postseason pitcher in Major League history. But guys with better regular season resumes and comparable postseason stats, like Josh Beckett and John Lackey, they did not sniff the Hall of Fame. So I think Bumgarner does better than those two guys because the postseason work is, even from great postseason pitchers, he's still superior. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think he gets a shot.
No, I don't think so either. But hey, it'll be a fun debate when that day eventually comes. Thankfully, it's not today. But oh well.
We will see Mad Bum somewhere else by the end of the year. Just might take a little while, and he might look a little different. Might be coming to the AL East. Probably not. But the American League East has been ravaged by pitching injuries in recent days. The Rays suffered the most severe blow. They already have Zach Eflin on the shelf. He's been suffering from a back issue for a while. He's on the IL. And now we learn Jeffrey Springs will, in fact, undergo Tommy John surgery. Seemed like he might be able to avoid it. Seemed like sort of a complex diagnosis, might be a couple months on the shelf. But now we're going to lose him for quite a while. Will this finally slow down the Rays' pace a little bit? I'm inclined to say that it's going to take even more than that. It's going to take some offensive injuries to do it, especially since we've already seen Taj Bradley come in and look great. But I'm curious as to your thoughts here, because I think all of America is sort of looking for the, hey, this surely will be the thing to finally derail the Rays. And so far, they're just responding to rare losses by bludgeoning their opponents some more and are 16-3.
It's been unbelievable, that start for them. And the pitching injuries certainly do hurt. Like the Zach Eflin injury right off the bat certainly wasn't ideal because that was their high-priced free agent. They spend more money than I thought they were going to get him. So getting him back, they're expected to get him back potentially this weekend, which comes at a perfect time with this Jeffrey Springs injury. So that Springs injury is really unfortunate. Like that was somebody that the Rays identified as a player who could really break out. And that was one of their best under the radar deals. In recent memory, because he was basically acquired for peanuts and he became a useful starter. They extended him in the offseason. And now he's gone for the year after a really strong start. Like, thankfully for the Rays, they have pitching depth. They have the ability to churn up pitchers more or better than any organization in baseball. But not having Springs is really going to hurt. And it also further bolsters the case for these pitchers to take early deals. I know I was critical of the Pablo Lopez deal in the last episode, but pitcher injuries are so common. You never know when the arm is going to give out or when a serious injury could strike. And getting your money now, just so you can have that certainty going forward, I will never fault a player for doing that. In Springs' case, that's certainly the case. But that's just a really unfortunate injury for Tampa because he was somebody that they had big hopes for, big plans for, and now he's gone for the year.
Yeah, and if you are a guy, I mean, Springs was traded there, but if you are a pitcher who is looking for an opportunity to rebuild yourself on a low salary, it makes pretty obvious sense to find your way to the Tampa Bay Rays. Of course, they have to want you too. So it's not like you always get to dictate your fate there. But if the Rays show any interest in you, even if the number's a little lower than you want, you could be Jeffrey Springs. Clearly, they see something in you.
Yeah, and actually on that point, Adam, is like I've talked to agents, I've talked to players about this. It's like if you're going to the Rays, you're very likely going to have a career year. And the players and the agents have agreed about it. And it's something in their player development. It's something in how they coach players there. It just brings out the best. And who would have thought it would be a team as small market as the Rays? It's really impressive. Players notice it. It's like Jason Adam, when he signed there, he was basically a journeyman reliever at that point. He had always had shown talent with like the Blue Jays and the Cubs, but like never really put it together. He goes to the Rays and he has the best season of his career, and he's pitching for Team USA like a year later. It's really impressive, and that's why I'm so confident in the Rays' ability to overcome the Jeffrey Springs injury, even as unfortunate as it may be.
Not for nothing, we got one of the most hilarious examples ever of the Rays rejuvenating a guy last year, too, when Corey Kluber goes from the Yankees, meh, to Tampa. Not fantastic, but you're looking at the quality starts. They're piling up. The numbers are the best they've been in years. Goes to the Red Sox, and he looks triply washed this year. I mean, no one has ever had that big a fall off between like age 35 and 36. So, I mean, that's just a beyond obvious one. I don't know how the Red Sox got duped by the Rays machine again, but clearly they bought into whatever development Corey Kluber did down there, and he could not recapture it so far to start the season.
No, I mean, what was it? Was it yesterday that his start just went?
Yeah. Joey Gallo took him 440 feet into the Fenway bullpen, 7 earned in under 4 innings. It's par for the course. I think he's got an ERA in the mid-8s now.
Other than that, it's going great.
He's retired a couple batters. I mean, sometimes batters swing and miss.
Hey, it's more guys than I've gotten out, but still unbelievable what the Rays have been able to do. Holy smokes. That's the latest proof in what is like a really like extensive list of players that they've just gotten the most out of.
And moving from the team where the Zach Eflin deal is considered, a giant contract that none of us could have fathomed, to the team that gives those out pretty regularly, but seems to swing and miss on more pitching blockbusters than most. The Yankees got more bad news on Carlos Rodón, who is going for additional tests on his stiff back. Already went through 1 round of tests. Aaron Boone called them pretty normal. Not sure what that means. He also called it a nuisance, but he's going out for another CT scan. People seem to continue to be calling this a minor issue, but minor, major, what have you, he's still behind, and he's further behind than he was a couple weeks ago. The elbow is fine. The back now is not. Will Rodón be worth the wait in 2023?
I think so. But this comes with a disclaimer is like, thankfully for him, the elbow is okay. I mean, like, as you said, it's fine, but back injuries are really tricky. They can linger. They can be re-aggravated with just a slight little like bad move. It's something that the Yankees and Rodón are going to have to be really mindful of. And for them, they cannot rush his return back. That could just lead to a setback, and that would not be good for either side. But I think ultimately when he does return, he'll show exactly why they gave him that amount of money this offseason. Like, he's a really talented pitcher. Like, he's one of the best left-handed pitchers in baseball. But injuries have always been a big concern with him. And the fact that he's dealing with injuries now, not great. As we said before, thankfully it's not the elbow. But anytime you hear of a back injury, especially for a pitcher, that's a little worrisome.
If there's one thing I know about the Yankees, and I know at least 3 things about the Yankees, it's that they will not rush him back. At the very least, they don't regularly do that. Except for Josh Donaldson this week, who they told us was fine and was going to do a 1-game rehab stint. And you watch him do that 1-game rehab stint, you're like, he can't run. Then after the game, they're like, yeah, his leg hurts. Oh, thanks. But I have full faith that they're going to wait Rodón out. It is painful. It was the most exciting addition to the offseason, but we move forward. We proceed. And in proceeding along our tour to AL East, speaking of recovery, got to mention Chris Sale, who had the worst command ever in his first 3 starts and found it against the Minnesota Twins on Tuesday. 6 innings, 1 run, 11 strikeouts against a good offense. Even with the command issues, of which there have been many, he has struck out 30 men in 18 innings. You can't trust him. I can't trust him, but were we too soon to write him off? There's something in that left arm.
There is something, but can it reveal itself on a consistent basis? That much I don't know. What we saw the other day, that's very encouraging. The fact he's got 30 strikeouts and so little innings pitched this season, a really good sign. But I am not close to ready to say that like Chris Sale has turned a corner. What we've seen in this last start, very encouraging, but the injury history, he's still got an 8 ERA. So certainly that's way up there. I still have way too many questions before I can definitively answer that, but good sign. But man, that Red Sox rotation, they are in some serious doo-doo. Boy, that's another technical term that I'm bringing out in the podcast here is doo-doo.
Teed up, too dirty.
Oh boy, that's am I gonna get suspended like Draymond Green?
Yeah, I mean that's a verbal stomp. Like that's basically the verbal equivalent of stomping on a man's chest.
All right, well, I won't stomp on your chest though, Adam. I like you too much to do that. Yeah, that's maybe Carm. No, just kidding. I love you, Carm.
Of course.
But no, it's that division is stacked. But man, oh man, I think the Red Sox are in for a free fall here. That's my guess. I could be wrong. This could be another old takes exposed moment. But I'm just not high on the Red Sox at all.
They are super fucking weird. That's my objective opinion. They've won 3 games this year on a dropped fly ball to left and 2 catcher's interferences in the bottom of the 8th inning. And then 2 days later, 1 catcher's interference in the bottom of the 8th inning. So they're definitely skin of their teeth 500, but at the same time, they're beating the garbage out of the Twins today. They're up like 10-3, and Tanner Houck slammed the lid shut on the Twins and put them in a garbage can. So while Corey Kluber and Chris Sale are sitting in the 8s, shaking hands in the 8 ERA club, the Red Sox can occasionally hit, and I don't think they're very good either, but they sometimes pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Sometimes they do, and it's like sometimes it gives you hopes and like wonder maybe they could actually pull this thing off, or maybe they could actually be like a middle of the road team in the AL East. I'm still not optimistic about it, but hey, today is another reason. Well, one of those reasons why maybe you can give some hope to them. By the way, Bobo, dang it, I think that's how you pronounce your name. The Pirates did own the Red Sox when they played them. That we can't take that away from you. The
Pirates are kind of owning everybody. They're still
Pirates are sick.
They're baseball's vibiest team. We've said it all year. We'll say it again. Andrew McCutchen, does it get vibier than that? It doesn't really.
No. Oh, absolutely not. Like that entire team is just filled with vibes. I thought maybe the Brian Reynolds stuff could like derail it a bit. But no, it just continued to just go, 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 go. By the way, I know Adam's got this teed up for later on in the podcast. We still got no Brian Reynolds update. We don't know what the hell is going on. I've wondered if they could get creative with this, like since they can't agree on the opt-out clause.
Yeah.
I wonder if they could include maybe a no trade. Maybe they could give more money to just make up for that difference. I can't say I've heard anything definitive there, but that is one of the most bizarre ones that I can remember. Is the sides essentially agreed to terms, but they couldn't agree on some key things like an opt-out clause. And here we are 2 to 3 weeks later, and we still got no deal, which mind-boggling.
Yeah, I have a Brian Reynolds update in the outline every single episode. It's a blank space. It's like, hey, let's talk about it. Oh, we have nothing? Great, let's move on. Today's Brian Reynolds update is : what the fuck, man?
That legitimately is. I opened up our little Google Doc here earlier today, and I saw Adams have that note in there. I laughed at that. That's like that's my response too. Is like, what in the absolute hell? Nuts.
I mean, they're having the best time, and Brian Reynolds still not taken care of. So nope. I guess we shall see. But in the NL Central, somebody else got paid. Hunter Greene And we can't talk about the Hunter Greene contract without talking about the stat you tweeted about the last person to get paid with these few innings and
Yeah.
this ERA and this range. But it's 6 years and $53 million with an option for a seventh, as far as I know, which seems like incredible value for a second overall pick. The fastball was supposed to be this 103-mile-an-hour marvel. It is so far. Add in Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft, and there's a path for the Reds if their owners feel like being alive and being alive on planet Earth. That said, the stat that you dropped, it does make even the most ardent supporter of this deal be like, that's not great company.
No, it's not. And this was not exactly a trade or an extension that was on my bingo card. I did not see the Greene extension coming, but it certainly makes sense. He is still 2 years pre-arb. So this contract, like I'm going to give you the breakdown here. Basically, he's got 2 pre-arb seasons, and then for 3 years he's basically going to be paid like he's at the top of the arbitration system. Roughly 28 million on one free agent year, and then a $21 million club option with heavy escalators. It's basically like the Spencer Strider deal. It's the same kind of idea as that, except the difference between these two is that Greene's deal includes a lot of incentives and a lot of escalators that can end up getting the deal to about 96.2 million. If all of those are picked up, of course. And an important detail in this too is that he is still, let's say he plays out this contract, becomes a free agent. He'll be 29 years old when that happens. That would be the same age as Steven Strasburg when he became a free agent. So he's still going to end up being in a position where he could get really paid if he lives up to all the hype that he had when he was drafted and when he made his major league debut. It's a deal that made sense for the Reds, made sense for Hunter Greene, and they ultimately ended up doing it. I don't necessarily know if the Reds are done. I believe the Reds have had discussions, I don't know to what degree, with Nick Lodolo. I don't know if anything is active there. I've heard varying signals there, but I think they've poked around with Lodolo for sure.
The Lodolo highlight package is an impressive one. He got somebody to swing and miss at a pitch that ended up behind his body again this week, which, like, hey, if you've done that more than once, clearly you have a slider worth paying for. But as you said, the previous record deal for starter who's not ARB eligible and had a career ERA over 4.25 was Derek Holland's $28.5 million. I wouldn't want to be a member of a club that also includes Derek Holland, as delightful as he was. I also wouldn't really, it's not even the same club because he beat him by $40 to $70 million. So it's almost like, it's like being mentioned alongside Derek Holland, but also it's like, hey, we know the similarity in your numbers and we're going to pay you an additional massive pile of millions. So here's hoping it works out. And again, Greene can still get another payday on top of this if he does live up to the billing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we've seen some of these free agent deals now that can be anywhere from like 150 to 175 to I think even approaching 200 mil for these frontline starters. We don't know what that's going to be when Greene is 29 and a free agent. So we could be looking at a guy who could earn as much as like 250, 300 mil over his career, which all said and done would not suck. That would be pretty good. So I think it was a smart deal. As I said, I don't know if the Reds are necessarily done. I don't think anything is imminent though with Lodolo. I do think there are other extension talks happening throughout the league. Actually, I do know that. I can't say necessarily which ones, but it's very interesting how many in-season extensions there have been, because typically teams and players like to table these talks at opening day just so there's no distraction going into the season. But we've seen a lot of these deals get done. I don't know if there's I think Reynolds gets done at some point, but I think we could see some others as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait, people are doing in-season extension talks, said Brian Reynolds. But we'll see.
I will give you a hint though, obviously, Bernard, since you've always been a big fan of us. He plays baseball. That is my clue. So that maybe that could be too big of a hint.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to be that guy. I was told to keep it quiet, but I like giving hints whenever I can.
Yeah. And when the news drops, though, you know where we'll be. We'll be right here, 3:30 Eastern, Mondays and Thursdays. And if it's a drop everything, then we'll drop everything. That's what we do for all of y'all.
It ain't a drop everything, though. I'll give you that much.
Yeah. Great. All right. Well, I'll drop nothing, and then we'll come back here at a regularly scheduled time and talk about it. That could also work.
Absolutely.
Before we leave, today's the day. Fernando Tatis Jr. is back. What can we expect? I don't know. How about a minor league rehab assignment where he hit .515 with 7 homers and 33 at-bats? The Padres need Fernando Tatis Jr. It's quite possible we're not just about to get him back, but maybe the best version of Tatis Jr. yet. What are you expecting from the return of a man who was the face of baseball a year ago? It was not that long ago.
No, you said it best. The Padres need Fernando Tatis Jr. He is the most exciting player in the National League. I feel like that's a pretty safe thing to say. And getting him back, getting him wherever they put him defensively, but especially offensively, is going to be big for that team. It's essentially like it's a similar thing to a big trade deadline edition, except this one's coming 3 to 4 weeks into the regular season. We're talking about a guy who can very likely be, or who's got the ability to be, the best shortstop in baseball. I still think it's Trey Turner right now, but Tatis certainly has that ability. And getting him back, it's going to be big for that club, both on the field and in the clubhouse, because considering their slow start, they could certainly use a kick in the keister. And Tatis is going to be a big, it's going to be a big energy boost for that team. And I think with him back, I think we're going to slowly see that Padres team looking like what we thought they were going to be going into the season here.
Yeah, Juan Soto went yard yesterday, displayed that attitude, a tight victory over the Braves. He's scuffling, but he needs to be back. You're right. Obviously, Berner not under contract yet. The money needs to, Juan Soto wants that money. Juan Soto's got to be Juan Soto. And Fernando Tatis Jr.'s return hopefully helps him in that process.
Yeah, and also I want to say this too before we close out, Mr. Weinrib, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course.
Is I wonder, because Juan Soto had that big extension that he turned down years ago. What was it, $440 million? Or it was last year at the All-Star game, basically.
Yeah.
When that leaked. Obviously, he voiced his displeasure to Stephanie Epstein about how that was leaked, and he blames that on the Nationals front office, even though the Nationals are adamant that they weren't the ones who leaked it. But I wonder if Juan Soto wishes he had that decision back, because $440 million, that's a lot of dough. That is a lot of dough. And I would imagine with him turning down that offer, he and his agent Scott Boras believed that he could get $500 million on the open market, if not more than that. But it's 50 to 60 plus million per, or like over that span of a contract. That's nothing to really scoff at. Like, that's a meaningful amount of money. But $440 million, that is a massive amount of money. If that was indeed what the actual offer was, I do wonder if he's regretting turning it down, because his play since he was traded to San Diego has been not what we've typically seen from Juan Soto.
And they would have been willing to build a World Series team around him in Washington, because they did. So it's not, there's no unknown there. It's like he was signing on for familiarity. He was signing on to lead the next generation. And now here we are, sort of one of many stars in San Diego and the one who's looking the least impactful.
Yeah, which I'll tell you, I would have never expected Juan Soto to struggle like this. He'll bounce back eventually. Like, he's too good of a player to be down this long, but it's just, and also you look back at those Washington Nationals teams, they were loaded. Pitching wise, they had Max Scherzer, they had Steven Strasburg when Strasburg was healthy, of course. Offensively, they had Bryce Harper, an up-and-coming Juan Soto. They had Trey Turner. They had Anthony Rendon, who was in his prime. They were loaded. Man, oh man. It's one of baseball's most underrated teams, I think, because that was like half of an all-star team is what that was.
And an incredible World Series performance, like best.
Yeah. I'll never forget that too. Like that was the last game I ever covered when I was at the Athletic is Brewers Nationals in the wild card game is the Nationals were down in the bottom of the 8th inning. It was Josh Hader against Juan Soto with the bases loaded. And the Brewers had the lead. They were basically 4 outs away from closing out the Nationals and advancing. Then Juan Soto hits that ball to right field. It takes a weird hop past Trent Grisham, and 3-run score. Nationals had the lead. Nationals close out the 9th inning. Brewers lose. Nationals win. Nationals go on to win the World Series. It was one of the craziest, most bizarre feelings I've ever had at a baseball game. It's like I was preparing to fly to wherever I had to fly, and all of a sudden, boom, Juan Soto happens, and I get to go home. And yeah, whenever I think of the Nationals, I always think of that one because that was just a wild turn of events, to say the least.
Yeah, and looky here, Juan Soto and Trent Grisham, current teammates. Maybe that's what's throwing him off. Who knows?
It could be. It could be. Although I will say I'm a big Trent Grisham fan. That he handled that entire thing with complete class. Can I go into that real quick?
Absolutely.
Wow, what an absolute G. So I remember I was the first reporter who was into the Brewers locker room after that game. And I walked in, and Grisham was at his locker, his head was in his hands, bawling his eyes out because he felt like he cost his team the game, and ultimately their postseason chances. Mike Moustakas was consoling him. There were other players who were doing the same thing, and Grisham stood in front of the lights and answered every question. He took full accountability for it, and that's always stood out to me. I know it stood out to a lot of the Brewers players, and he handled that really well. And I don't know how many players would have done that same thing, especially since he was a rookie that year. Yeah, that was definitely one that opened my eyes and made me respect and appreciate Trent Grisham for the man and player that he is.
Yeah, and most of us out here sort of sitting on our couches were feeling terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he was feeling terrible too. And that's every great sports moment typically has a GOAT. Sometimes everybody executes perfectly and a better player just delivers, but sometimes somebody has to fail for somebody else to succeed. And this was definitely an instance where somebody's failure propelled a World Series run. And the Washington Nationals will never forget it. Grisham will never forget it. But to his credit, I think we've all moved on because of the way he treated people like you.
Bingo. I think what you just said is spot on. And I mean, I can say that about most things that you say. So that's me being nice to you for once and actually giving you a compliment. So good work, my guy.
Hey, I'll take it. You're the GOAT. No, it does not get better. I'm proud to host this show with you. And this is another successful episode in the books. I hope you joined us. It was Thursday at 3:30, just like we said, Eastern time. Every time difference changes, but Eastern time is 3:30 every Monday and Thursday. Audio feed updated after the show airs, originally on YouTube, on Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. I'm excited for baseball. The countdown to summer starts now, as the Baltimore Orioles tweet that just crossed my feed says, and it alerted me that the Birdland Summer Music Series features on June 30th a concert from Shaq. So if you're in the area, get your tickets. Go see Shaq at Camden Yards on June 30th. Until next time, Robert Murray, we are so close. The season's heating up. The weather's heating up. Does not feel like April 20th to me. And it was a pleasure, as always, to do this show with you.
Hey, it's always a pleasure for doing the show with you. And I will also give you one last little detail here. Obviously a burner. Talking about Josh Tolentino. I don't know if this has made Twitter yet, but a little birdie has told me that he had a basketball shooting competition with Philadelphia Eagles coach Nick Sirianni today, which that's kind of sick. I'm not gonna lie. He's living my dream. He's an Eagles beat writer now, so he's around the Birds a lot. But shout out to Josh, great dude. Got to work with him for a little bit at the Athletic, good friend right there. So. Yeah. Both of those guys could be Juan Toribio. That guy, absolutely. I saw Juan a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him how his jumper is doing, and he looked at me, just gave me that stare, and he just said it's filthy, and it's like, I still haven't seen this jump shot. Apparently, it actually is good. I'll give Juan all credit there, but I like to tease him at least. He's somebody I like to tease a little bit.
Well, there's still plenty of season left. I think we'll probably see Toribio's jumper by the end of it. But until then, we thank everybody for coming back with us every week. Robert and I will be right back here on Monday, and we'll see you then.
Thank you, everybody.